Hello and welcome to the New Moon Tarot forecast for August the 19th, 2020. And it continues to be a very strange time. It continues to be a very stressful time. And I think I've brought out a video actually, if you haven't seen it, on the channel, but not about tarot, but about what is Jungian psychology. And I think I'm going to be bringing out a series of those about how to really read and navigate the waters from a psychological perspective and not strictly a tarot perspective. So keep an eye out for those. But in the meantime, tarot can be an incredible tool, as you know, if you've been watching these for any length of time, to help us to understand what's going on outside, but also, more importantly, I think, to help us understand what's going on inside, who we are and where we are going, and what it is that we want and what we don't want, what triggers us, what nourishes us, all of those things that will help us to better understand and to move through these very, very challenging events. And those challenges vary from country to country, to person, but all of us in our own ways are facing particular challenges. And my wish for you today is that this reading is pertinent to your specific circumstances. It doesn't matter about anyone else. It's my intention with these readings is that they hold relevance to anyone and everyone who comes, so that it speaks to whoever you are in a way that works for you most and most effectively. So I am going to do my standard 3-card reading as always. And I have shuffled the deck and the cards are ready as always. I have not had a look at the cards myself, so these cards are going to be as much of a mystery to me as they are to you right now. And I will read them as I turn them over, and really it's a spontaneous, intuitive read. And I find that that is much better than rehearsing anything or drawing anything beforehand and then preparing or knowing what's going to happen in terms of the cards being turned over. So the first card, the foundation card. This is the card that describes something that we are bringing into the circumstances. So in other words, the metaphorical foundation to what it is that you are going to be building or meeting, or the structure that you are going to be encountering. The foundation suggests that it has already happened or is in the process of happening. So it is something that you will be familiar with. And if the card comes up and you're not familiar with it, then it's something that I would suggest that you are able to become familiar with relatively quickly, because it will be, if not in your immediate awareness or purview, it will be there accessible to the conscious mind, and you will be able to then draw on it and then use it as a foundation for what is happening this month. And it may not even be an active using. It may simply be an event or something that is beyond your control, whether so-called positive or negative, that is coming in and is the backdrop for what it is that is happening. So the foundation card is, for this month, the Lovers. So the Lovers is a major arcana card, as many of you will know. It is the 6th card in the major arcana, and is associated more often than not with the astrological sign of Gemini. Now, I know that a lot of you, particularly beginners, I would suggest, and I'm not scorning at by any stretch of the imagination, because in many circumstances, this is true, that the Lovers has a literal meaning of the Lovers. So this is the one that a lot of us want to encounter when we are looking for romance or a relationship. But I would suggest that the Lovers, given the fact that it is a major arcana card, that's a clue to the fact that it is a lot more nuanced than that, a lot deeper than that. And the Lovers really, at its deeper sense of the meaning for me, because interpretations of course will vary, is a choice. It is a matter of choice. So if you look at the way that the cards and the majors evolve, You go, the card preceding that is the Hierophant, and the card before that is the Emperor, Empress before that. So let's just start there. You've got the Empress, which is the ruler of natural cycles of nature, of life, and then death, and then rebirth, and those cycles that are governed by, and the movement of the planets. And so it's the natural world, and the natural world inside us as well. And the Emperor governs the man-made world, the secular world. So it's about rules and regulations, about stating one's authority, asserting one's claim. And because it's the Emperor, there is no democracy really in this. The Emperor may be benign, or he may be a tyrant, but really what he says goes. So it's very similar to the Two of Wands, maybe even the Three of Wands in the minor arcana, in as much as it is about building your world, about making decisions over how things are going to run in your life. So this is the, I was going to say the artificial life. I don't mean that. It's the man-made life. So it is to do with all of the rules and authorities and the way that things work that are not governed by natural cycles. So we have the Emperor then, who's fourth. And then the fifth card in the majors is the Hierophant. And that is the beginning to answer to a higher authority. So you've got natural cycles, and then you've got sort of man-made laws, and then you have spiritual laws or spiritual discipline. And so it is the idea of buckling down and being able to commit to something bigger than oneself. And it may be a recommitment to natural cycles. It may be paganism, for example, but it may be also a recommitment to, or a commitment to a sense of discipline. And so while those three cards there form a sort of a very good structure, then what happens is that within that structure, we need to exercise discernment. And with that comes the Lovers. It's that idea of choice. It's that idea of, and in fact, the card in the Waite-Smith Tarot, and I very often will refer to the Waite-Smith Tarot, is about the Garden of Eden. It is also about the coming together of the masculine and the feminine. It is the introduction of the immanent, the sort of down and in feminine, as opposed to the up and out masculine. It's the immanence that's coming into the body, into the garden. It's into life, which is then non-dual, which is this idea then of choice. And so the Lovers can be about lovers. It can also be about choice, and it can be about choice of lovers. And that is the foundation at the moment in terms of, so that's something that is coming in. Either you're actively bringing in as part of your experience, or it is something that is coming in a more subtle way in your experience that will then feed into the current weather, which is card number 2, which is, and I'm going to draw that. The Queen of Wands. So the Queen of Wands is a court card, and court cards are personality driven cards. We are all of the court cards all of the time, but some of them then sort of fall back into the unconscious. Some of them are very rarely in our conscious awareness. Some of them become more active depending on what it is that we're being called to do, what is being brought forth in us, whether that's something that we bring forth ourselves, that we actively call on, or is called on through us. So it could be called, it could be a call to action, it could be being triggered, all of those kinds of things. But the Queen of Wands herself is, as the Queen, she is then coupled with the Knight, which is the King in this deck. And they are the masculine and feminine, the yang and the yin qualities that we have as in their highest incarnation, in their highest potential, the individuated adult. And so these are qualities of individuation, but in a fiery way. So wands are creativity, they are libido, they are fire, they're the fire element. So this is about the feminine, again, the yin way of mastery over creativity. So that can be procreation, of course. The Queen of Wands is also archetypally a witch-like figure. So and I would use that really broadly. So I would, you can take it from somebody who does work with spells and magic, or you could take it as a tarot reader, for example, or you could take it as somebody who is exercising creativity on their own terms. Because again, in the highest expression, it's individuated. So this is about exercising one's own personal authority in the realm of fire, creativity, making change. So this is what's going to be happening. This is what we are moving into. Now, it may be that we are moving into that aspect of ourselves, in which case the Lovers is the foundation of having made a choice and then moving, and that choice then results in a shifting towards a particular way of being and a particular way of approaching the world that is the result of that choice. It may be not that choice may not have been the only reason for this happening, but I would suggest that it is a trigger for that. It is an initiator for that. So the Lovers, whether that is the traditional view of the Lovers or about that idea of choice and bringing in that idea of choice, sparked the flame that has become then the Queen of Wands. And so when that happens, it is either going to be happening through us, or it may be coming to us in the form of another person, very often in the form of another person, because the court cards, I think, are quintessentially personality based. I don't necessarily, in fact, I'm not sure that I ever really see them in terms of events. I only see them in terms of events if they are initiated by a particular person who has those characteristics. But what I would suggest is that if you see the Queen of Wands coming to you or at you, because there is a difference, and one of them, it's the difference between something that feels maybe welcome and something that maybe feels either surprising or less welcome. But if it feels like the Queen of Wands is coming to you or at you from the outside, then I would, and only from the outside, that it is in the guise of another person and you are attributing that energy to this other person, I would invite you to entertain the possibility that you are merely seeing a reflection of an aspect of yourself, and that perhaps it is time for you to start owning that for yourself, instead of always conferring authority to an outside or external source, and then to ask yourself why, if this is coming to you or at you from outside, why it would be that you would assume that it isn't something that's a part of you already. Because the Queen of Wands is an interesting figure. I think that I think many people that I read for, if not most, really see her as an entirely positive figure. I'm not too sure about that, but I think that what it does is that she speaks to an aspect of us that is, fiery, don't give a damn, autonomous, creative. I mean, if you look at her, she is direct, she's challenging. Wands themselves are masculine, so she has a masculine quality to her femininity, even while she is a female figure here. But I think that many people don't want to own that. And I think that one of the reasons why we don't want to own it is sometimes we feel that she's too good for us, or that we're not up to it. And she can also be a little bit scary. She is direct, she is focused, she is her own woman. She's silent there, but quite frankly, I think she's just reading the room and biding her time until she decides to speak out. And that can be fiery, and it can be intimidating. It can be intimidating for the people who are on the receiving end of that, though it can also be intimidating for the person who is being invited to step into the Queen of Wands' shoes. And I think that part of the fear also is not just simply about feeling like, oh, she's, I don't think I could ever be the Queen of Wands. I could never aspire to that. There is a certain element of too muchness to the Queen of Wands, or the archetype that we tend to throw around. Oh, she's too loud. He's too noisy. He's too boisterous. She's too opinionated. he doesn't follow the rules. She doesn't bow to any authority. You know, those kinds of things. Just too muchness. There's a brilliant article written by, I think it's Jeanne Treadway, and I'm going to try and find it and link to it in the below in the comments or in the notes. That is, I think it's called Too Dang Much. And I read this several years ago, maybe 10, 11 years ago, and it really spoke to me in terms of this kind of Queen of Wands energy, this ability to stand up vocally, vociferously, and fully be oneself. And you don't have to be an artist to be the Queen of Wands. I know that wands are creativity, but also self-definition is a form of art. In fact, it's probably one of the highest forms of artistry that there is, as far as I'm concerned. Being oneself, doing you know, what you feel called to do when you are called to step fully into yourself, is an act of creativity. And it's a profound act of creativity, and it doesn't have to be fearless. Because I think that most of us, when we stand up and be, and you know, when we are trying to be ourselves, it can be a very frightening thing indeed. But it is, it does this in spite of the fear, and possibly even because of the fear, that that you are unapologetically being yourself, even while you're quaking in your boots silently, you know, somewhere inside. So the Queen of Wands, I think, is going to be an invitation. That invitation is going to, as I say, may come at you from outside. It may actually be an invitation. It may actually be a literal invitation. But it's going to be something, I think, that is worth exploring in terms of who it is that you are, who it is that you don't think you are, and the potential of what it is that you might be becoming in an area of your life. And maybe it's something that you haven't really explored before. Just a note on that, in terms of the shadow aspects of the Queen of Wands, because I have touched on that, but I think it's worth saying it because no card is entirely positive. So the shadow aspect of the Queen of Wands is I think that they're things that are worth paying attention to. So one of the shadows is denying that she exists in us. That's a shadow aspect. Her non-appearance, the quiet as a mouse person, the grey mousy person who says that they have nothing to say, and they say that they have nothing to offer, and they feel that and they believe that, and so they don't. And that's one of the shadow aspects of the Queen of Wands, and that's on the one end of the scale. On the other end of the scale, the shadow aspect of the Queen of Wands is the tyrant, is the wronged, wrathful woman. And when I say that, I'm going to talk about in terms of archetypes. So this is a feminine kind of energy, but this moves through all of us, and it can move through all of us at any particular time. And I would say then to be on the lookout for too much fire, you know, for the desire to burn things at any cost, to burn things down, that but to do it in a way that to spite others or to spite ourselves. I think that there's a fine distinction here to be made about burning. So when I say burning, I'm talking about getting rid of things that no longer serve, or surrendering to a process where that is happening to you and you don't have much choice over it. But there comes a point where if you are being driven by rage or feeling wronged, or you are feeling in some way aggrieved and you need to exact revenge, then that burning can end up burning a lot more than needs to go. And it can end up actually burning the protagonists themselves. You end up getting burnt. So the saying, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face, is very much that idea of the Queen of Wands who's run riot. So I would say that Kali is a Queen of Wands-like figure. And I know that so many people say, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna go Kali on their asses. I'm gonna embody Kali, and I'm just gonna go in there and I'm gonna fucking tell them what to do. And You see, you can feel it moving through me already, and that's not that. I'm not sure that that's a really accurate portrayal of Kali. I think that that's shadow Kali. Kali is a very very potent figure, and she is not a popular figure in terms of her emergence into the collective. However, she is a necessary figure. It is rage that corrects. It is a sort of empress figure in a way who needs to destroy whatever it is that isn't working. But then what happens is that the destruction in the shadow phase gets taken too far. That need to destroy to renew actually destroys the very things that were going to be renewed. So, for example, in Cape Town, where I used to live, there is a biosphere called the fynbos, and fynbos is this plant kingdom that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and it needs a really, really good blazing fire. I think it's every 10 years or so, in order to regenerate, in order for seeds to be released and then for new things to grow. Unfortunately, the fynbos is being destroyed because there are too many fires. They are coming too frequently, and they're being set by people, sometimes deliberately and sometimes because they don't clear up their fires after themselves, or they throw down a match or a cigarette. And the fynbos is not being able to regenerate because even the new growth is being destroyed. And I think that there's something here to be said for new growth, possibly, being on the lookout for new growth at risk from the very same fire that could have given life to it, and which now may be taking it away. And so I would ask you to remain vigilant about that in yourself and in the world around you. I certainly can see that happening, and I won't go into any more specifics. I might do that in a video separate from the reading, but just be aware of that shadow Queen of Wands that can take her flamethrower and just sort of aim it at 360 degrees around her until she's standing in a pile of ash and her toes are burnt. So that's the current weather, and the Lovers being the foundation to that. So that idea of choice, and then leading into an experience of or an encounter with the Queen of Wands. And I would say, before I move on, that don't keep this at the level of the personal. In this, you can by all means interpret it at the level of the personal, but draw it out into what it is that you're experiencing in your life, not just in you, but in your life and in life on this planet, because there are things going on, and I feel drawn to saying that, particularly because the reading started off with a major card. So that is almost saying, here's the framework, here's the pathway into something that may look personal, but is also collective. And your tool card in this, so the thing where you have agency, where you can most act upon your environment, where you most are able to lever something either into place or out of place and dislodge it if it's something that's in your way, is the Prince of Cups. Oh, now that's really interesting, because if you look at the cards together, there's your Lovers. So you've got the male and female character in the Lovers, which I know is an archetypal card. So, but I would also read it at the level of the personal as well sometimes. And then you actually do have these qualities, which may be people, but may be aspects of yourself, or both. I would never limit it to just keeping your eye out for people coming over the horizon that are going to somehow change your life for you. The person who's doing that, who's sort of going, okay, I'm just going to now sit here and wait until the Queen of Wands comes over that hill over there, forgetting the fact that they are the Queen of Wands as well, just sitting there waiting for themselves, in a manner of speaking. So, so the Prince of Cups and the Queen of Wands, lots of breasts in this reading. I wonder what that's about. nurturing, maybe, mother. It seems to be a very female or feminine card reading this month. Very sexual as well. There's a lot of particularly with the Prince of Cups. Good grief! I sincerely hope that YouTube doesn't have some kind of like recognition on their videos so that this immediately gets banned for nudity. That's already happened to me on Facebook. So the Prince of Cups is the knight in other decks. So not the Queen's counterpart. She is, if you look at it in terms of a royal family, that it would be, the Queen's, it'd be somebody who's about 10, 15, 20 years younger than the Queen in terms of age. And so, but the Prince of Cups, whereas the Queen is fiery, she's this sort of, this very sort of hugely sort of fiery, full of life creatrix. The Prince of Cups, as you can see, well, cups, watery, it's emotions, it's the unconscious, it's love. In the Prince of Cups, I would suggest that his idea of love is maybe a little bit immature, and I mean that in terms of his age rather than in terms of a value judgment. But he's basically dreaming of tits and ass, and he's faced in the direction of the Queen of Wands, but his eyes are closed, and the Queen of Wands is not really, she's not looking at him. So if you look at the two cards and how they're interacting, they're not really. They are interacting by virtue of the fact that one of them is looking towards the other, and they are court cards. However, they are not interacting directly. And I know that this is the Tool card, but I also like to explore and investigate the way that cards interact between each other as well. So I will go to the Tool and what that might mean afterwards. But in terms of this now, it's almost as if there is this, in the current theme of this month, there is this idealization maybe of something on the part of the Prince of Cups, or the looking for something that doesn't entirely exist. So the Prince of Cups is looking at the Queen of Wands, but his eyes are closed, or he's facing the Queen of Wands and his eyes are closed, and he's dreaming, of breasts and legs and bellies, and he's really got all of that on his mind, and cups being love. So I would say that he is a person quick to fall in love, quick to do that. And I would say that the Queen of Wands is on his mind, but the Queen of Wands is remaining steadfastly her own person here. She is looking ahead. She is not turning around to look at him. I'm just going to show you again, maybe see something more in that. And so this individuated feminine aspect or quality of creativity and fire and being able to speak one's own mind is unaffected really by by what is coming in terms of this dreamy, watery, sort of love-infused lust, probably, masculine energy that just likes to think about conquests and excitement of, carnal pleasures. And I'm actually going to put my glasses on just to read a little bit on the Prince of Cups. Right. Yeah, it's got to that stage where I need glasses now. Desire, wishes. What's here? Something about transformation. So I would say it's the wish for transformation, the possibility of transformation. That's what it says here. So that's the Tool card. So how does that fit? If you've got the Tool card there, and yet the Tool card is not really being received by the theme card. And I would say that it would be to hold focus on what it is that you want until it transforms. So in other words, there's the Prince of Cups, who has this sort of inward idea of what it is that he loves and what it is that he wants. It's not being received from the outward figure, but perhaps that's because a transformation needs to take place before the two aspects meet. So in other words, to put it into a more mundane way, and I'm not saying this is the only interpretation whatsoever, because I don't think it is, but it's the first one that came to me, is that if you are one of those people who doesn't believe that you can embody the qualities or power of the Queen of Wands, that you don't believe that you have a voice or you have anything to say, or that you cannot imagine recreating an aspect or quite a bit of your life and stepping fully into your voice and into how to act on that, then to remain, to hold that dream, to hold that idea of transformation into that in your heart and in your own mind until such time as something shifts. And at the moment, it's not, the two things are not entirely shifting. However, they're not antagonistic. They seem to be quite complementary in that they kind of complete each other in some way. And how that happens, how those two things fit together, though they might seem discrete, that they fit together, is really the key of this. You know, you've already brought in the foundation work for this. You're already almost as if you have a framework, and then these two things need to slot in. So your experience of the Queen of Wands this month, in whatever way it is, then in some way has a complementary and symbiotic relationship to and reaction with the tool card that you have, which is holding this dream, this desire of something or someone. And that someone may well also be you. I always think now, and it's terribly unromantic, and I'm sorry about this, but you know, my own life has really served to be an incredibly painful lesson to me in this, and so I now have the dubious honor of passing this on, is that anyone that you hold up as an ideal in terms of somebody that you really want, you know, so you look at the Lovers card and then you look at the Queen and then you look at the Prince and you go, oh yes, I really want that. You have to find that in yourself first. That desire for the other is actually the desire for the other in you. Because as we all know, and anyone who's gone and stuck through a relationship where it has been, you know, a lot of lust, a lot of tension, sexual tension at the beginning, will inevitably shift. There are very, very few people where that doesn't happen, you know, and if that doesn't happen in those people's lives, well, then that's wonderful, but they are a rarity. But for those people who then have to contend after the lust has worn off with the fact that there is a very human person standing opposite them, then it's, you know, it's a lesson learned about what it is that desire is and what it is that we really think that we're wanting when we look at somebody. And because it's so easy to confer all of the power onto that other person. But and it's really not particularly romantic, and in fact it's a real party pooper to think that what it is that you desire in them is actually an aspect of yourself that is somehow, you know, splintered off or is disowned, but you found it again through them. And that desire to merge with them is also the simultaneous desire to merge with that aspect of you. So if you are giving a lot of time and energy to someone out there, then ask yourself why you might not be giving yourself the same amount of time and energy. You know, why is it that you are giving all your power away? Because I'll tell you what, she isn't doing that at all. In fact, the Queen of Wands in the, you know, I like to think of the Queen of Wands in terms of her fully individuated incarnation, the way that she is at her highest potential. That's why she's not looking at the Prince of Cups. I'm hoping she's looking in a mirror, and that mirror is you. So the Prince of Cups is incredibly useful. That's your tool, but may not be useful in the most romantic way, may not be, but I think that romance is necessary. So here's the paradox, and there always is a paradox in all of these. The desire for romance is the thing that gets us started along the road towards finding more of ourselves. And first we then, you know, we try and find it in somebody else. And then eventually those projections get withdrawn. And then sometimes, hopefully, we we start to look inside and see if we can find that ourselves. But it always starts off with desire. So wherever there is sort of desire, libido, lust, then you can be sure that there is an aspect of you asking for your attention inside. It's just that you may have to get to it through someone else first, or you may not. It depends. But the lovers, this means that you already have the framework to do this in. So, so I'm going to leave it there, and I will, any questions, any comments, please, I will do my best to answer them. And I wish you a very good coming 4 weeks, and I will see you again next month. Take very good care. Bye.